Let's talk about architecture, because architecture is something that affects all of us. Unless you're our one subscriber who is a Mongolian nomad living in the distant steppe and accessing our podcast via Starlink, you will live in an architecture, you will go to work in an architecture, or even go to school in an architecture. So architecture is important. It's part of our everyday lives.
We are in architecture right now.
We are
and
indeed.
From the outside, it's not particularly attractive architecture,
It's
I'll
not.
say that.
And I think there is a trend which anyone with their eyes open will have noticed by now. I've noticed, you've noticed, people in the office have noticed. In fact, everyone except this Mongolian steppe herder seem to have noticed. And that's that when you walk around Europe's great cities, the old stuff is beautiful, but the new stuff, not so much.
No.
And so I want to just run through some of the architectural crimes that have been committed. And there is this beautiful Twitter handle that I've discovered called Architects Against Humanity.
I think I've seen some of their stuff before. They do post some beautiful buildings and then some not so beautiful buildings.
Exactly. And we're just going to take a look at some of them to just sort of hammer home what I really mean about this. So they begin here. Look at this. It's absolutely fantastic, isn't it?
That's gorgeous. That's somewhere that if you lived there, you would be proud to look up at the skyline and see the achievements of this civilization that you're part of.
We don't want any of that. No, absolutely not. Let's go to the next one. This is what architects want. Look, I designed an awesome new building. It's so innovative and sustainable. It's ugly and will be demolished within a century. Did I mention it's sustainable? It's terrible. And then we go to the next one. So for regular people, good architecture is about beauty, but for contemporary architects, it's an intellectual game. And as we can see here, generally speaking, the public hate it. Go to the next one. Again, another beautiful town. This one's Dubrovnik in Croatia.
Gorgeous.
Just your daily reminder that in 100 years, modernism has not produced a beautiful town.
No, and this has been presumably around for a good few hundred years, and people care enough about it to sustain it out of their own pocket.
Well, as well, Dubrovnik, it's not the third world, but it's also not the richest place in the world. It doesn't take that much to build and maintain a beautiful city. All it takes, really, fundamentally, is, first of all, you build something pretty in the first place, and then you have the civic pride to look after it.
Yeah, there's willpower, and it's also recognising, I think it's something that our own generation, elements of it, have struggled with, recognising that you are standing on the shoulders of giants. It's the Burkean idea of life is a pact
it's a
between
legacy.
the dead. Yeah, it's the dead, the living, and the unborn. This is what the dead provided us. That's part of our history, and we don't have any right to build anything that won't stand up like this for our own children. Well, we do have the right, you could say.
But this is the thing.
Why would you want
the way
to?
that we alter our architectural landscape is a conversation between past and present. So it's not as simple as, like what these old dead white men built. Let's get rid of all of it and replace it with concrete. You don't have the right to do that.
Cubes.
Like, that's a crime against the legacy of those people, and a crime against everyone you're living with as well. We go to the next one. This is a classic contrast. The old municipal theatre of Corfu, bombarded by the Nazis and demolished afterwards, versus the new municipal theatre of Corfu, built in the same place to replace the old. And you just see a beautiful old sort of classical building and a block.
See, I don't understand why in this situation, other than for pure efficiency's sake, why they couldn't just try and recreate the old building. I imagine it was just for pure efficiency.
They could have put some flourishes on it, certainly. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, stone for stone, but they could at least have tried to make something beautiful rather than, here's a block.
And it just seems lazy, and I understand that a lot of these, brutalist architects and the more modernist architects are trying to often say something, but I don't understand what it is that you're saying that's meaningful.
Yep, here's another great contrast. Let's go to the next one. Brussels versus Brusselisation. If we just click on the concrete one to the side there. So, look at that. It's just awful. And there are so many towns and suburbs.
The watermark in the corner, the aesthetic
Well, no,
city.
that's the Twitter handle.
Oh, okay.
But it's just worth pointing out that so many second-tier towns and cities are just filled with this type of architecture. It's much more common, not so much in the capitals and so on, but certainly the town where we are, much of it is a concrete wasteland. It's dire.
I used to live in Manchester. In Manchester, honestly, if you go to the right parts, does have some absolutely lovely architecture in it. There's a number of gorgeous churches and cathedrals in that city, but all of the new buildings look a lot more like this. even without the concrete, they're just big glass blocks, and on a sunny day, it will just reflect the sun straight into your eye and blind you.
Absolutely. If we go to the next one, the memes are, of course, out in force.
Yep. I was thinking, the second anybody mentioned
Yeah.
the white cubes thing, I was thinking that Top Gear episode where Jeremy Clarkson, they've tagged it in that right there.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, that's just modern architecture in a nutshell there. And there's also this one, if we go to the next one. Remember that horror movie where the serial killer wore the face of his victim as a mask? Have a look at facadism. Let's just click on some of these. So you've got a hideous building at the back, and they've just built this facade on the front, so you don't quite have to look at it so much.
This doesn't even look...
Go to the next one.
I mean, it doesn't even look real to me.
I know.
Good
Go to the
God.
next one. It's just... That one's quite hard to see, and then when you see it, it's like, oh God.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've done a video on this in the past, and the point that I bring up is that one of the things about old architecture, like the town that I come from, Nantwich, is still primarily made up of like old Tudor buildings and buildings from the 1600s, 1700s, and you walk around and there's so many reminders of everything that came before. It tells a story. What story?
And it's your story as well, because you live there.
Yeah, yeah. And what story is this telling?
That we're embarrassed of the buildings we built.
Yes.
We go to the last one on this. Yeah, like, what is that even trying to do there?
And if you care enough to build the
facade.
facade, if you know that the building that you've made is hideous, just build a building that looks like the facade. It's so simple.
I know, right? And then the memes continue. So here we have a craftsman versus architect. Designed by a craftsman on the left, looks beautiful. Traditional architecture, designed by a Pritzker Prize-winning architect
That's
on the right.
a prison. That is a prison cell on the right. I would not want to live there.
It's awful, isn't it? You can imagine what that would do to people if you lived in a city where that was the building you lived in. Those were the buildings you looked at. That was where you went to visit your friends.
It's
and go to work.
demoralising.
Thoroughly, completely
It is
demoralising.
thoroughly demoralising, and it's the fact that most major cities across the world, certainly in the Western Anglosphere, you could say, are starting to rely far, far more on this type of architecture. So it is the globalist homogenisation where everywhere you go will feel and look the same, have the same atmosphere.
Yeah, and the great point there is that with the traditional materials, obviously things that were built 100, 200 years ago had to rely much more on local materials. So you end up getting a local look. If your town is right next to a sandstone quarry, oh, surprise, surprise, the town looks like sandstone because it's made out of that. Whereas now everything is made out of concrete and glass and steel. It's not very nice. If we go to the next one as well, this is the standard response of why is old architecture so much better than modern architecture. It's just a cross-section of a modern architect's mind. Well, because beauty is completely subjective, so it doesn't exist. There's no point even talking about it, Harry. But also, they must have destroyed all of the ugly buildings, so it's only survivorship bias that we like the ones we see now.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
And the Nazis only aimed for the ugly buildings.
And my architecture is more conceptual anyway, because I'm an artiste, and it's beautiful. And anyway, they're racist for criticising.
Yeah, yeah. I hate the whole, like, oh, it's conceptual, so it means the only way that I can understand and truly appreciate your work is if I have access to your inner thoughts and mind.
Yeah.
Great.
It's meant to ask a question, Harry, to make a statement, to have an impact. And
Yeah,
it does
just-
all of those things, to be fair. It makes a bad statement. It has a bad impact.
Yeah. Who let these people design anything with anything other than just Legos?
I know. They should have been left playing with glue. Go to the next one.
Sniffing it more like.
What I love about modern architecture are all the big sunlight-filled windows. And then we have this.
That really does look like something out of Blade Runner, doesn't it?
There are so many modern architecture-style buildings which just look like they're from sci-fi dystopias.
I know
You take one look at them and you're like, God, the people who built this wanted us to live in misery.
I mean, we beat the Soviet Union, but they seem determined to bring the Soviet Union
I know,
to us.
right?
It's
the
insane.
architectural equivalent of a punch in the face looking at that building. The aesthetic equivalent. I despise it. And of course, many of you will already know who we have to blame for this, but largely we can trace this back to one man,
Oh, can we?
Le Corbusier. And so Le Corbusier was the father of modernism in architecture. He was a Swiss-French architect, designer, painter, urban planner, writer, and one of the pioneers of what is now regarded as modern architecture. He wrote the Athens Charter. He was the most influential figure in the functional city movement. Functionalists, and this is in the 1930s, thought that by forcing everyone to live in cardboard boxes, they would somehow re-engineer the common man and deprive him of his despicable petty bourgeois conservative tendencies. They were trying to create a utopia through architecture.
So he was a socialist.
Yeah, but a lot of their activism was born of sheer narcissism rather than even socialism. They wanted to destroy the architecture of Europe and replace it with their stamp, their image, their art, and their ego. That over there is Le Corbusier's plan for Paris. That if we click on that one there, I believe this is Paris. So you've been to Paris, right? Notre Dame, the Eiffel Tower.
Yes, there's quite a lot of striking architecture.
Beautiful traditional architecture. This is what he wanted to do: knock it all down and put essentially what looks like Nazi air defense fortresses for people to live in instead.
Great.
It's horrendous. And to take a quote from him, "Nothing is left to us of the architecture of past epochs, just as we can no longer derive any benefit from the literary and historical teaching given in schools." 1926. So Le Corbusier was literally saying, literature and history is worthless. Teaching them in schools is a waste of time.
I'm not surprised that a socialist doesn't care about everything that came behind them.
And if we continue with this thread, he continues, so the principles of modern town planning have been developed by the work of countless technicians. Technicians in the art of building, technicians of health, technicians of social organisation. The International Congress of Modern Architecture in 1933. And if we click on the city of tomorrow there, it's, yeah, that's not very nice, is it?
No, it's bland, it's boring, it's ugly.
But you'll notice that one thing they don't mention at all is technicians of beauty, because such a thing does not exist. They seem to believe that beauty cannot exist because it cannot be rationalistically defined, fundamentally. And we go to another functionalist. We've got Philip Johnson here. 3 factors are responsible for the great post-war flowering of architecture. Yes, that's what he called it, flowering. I would choose another word that begins with an F. First, a generation of architects trained in schools that no longer teach the traditional styles has now begun to practice. And he was saying this out of praise, not out of lamentation. The battle for modern architecture has long been won, he continues. The international style which Henry Russell Hitchcock's book of 1932 heralded has ripened, spread, and been absorbed by the wide stream of historical progress in 1953. Look at that.
Once again, these people only ever build things that end up looking like prisons.
Yeah, it's anti-human, fundamentally. We need a new architecture, a new modernism, a neo-modernism. If the choice is between scraping our way backwards with a neoclassicism or rediscovering economies of scale with new materials and new techniques, I say let the cause be neo-modernism. Max Hutchinson, and this time 1989. So this has been alive for a long period of time.
So these are the names I'm putting on my list.
Yeah, and let's point out, these are all eminent architects, wealthy, influential, prize-winning marauders who have laid waste to the city of the world with ghastly ideas about modern architecture.
Prize-winning swindlers.
Yeah, and let's quickly have a look at the portfolio of Le Corbusier. His architectural sites were designated World Heritage Sites in 2016.
No.
Right, and I've taken 3 which are particularly egregious. If we go to the next image, I mean, what supervillain lives there? Do you think?
It just looks like a big toilet.
Yeah.
There's the toilet bowl and there's the water.
Amazing. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is basically the wonders of the modern architectural world. In the old days, they built the pyramids and the Great Wall of China and the Temple of Zeus and the Pharos Lighthouse, and we build the urinal.
The industry, yeah. The interesting thing I find about conservatism is that some people assume that I just want to conserve everything. No, part of it is being able to discern what is worth.
I don't want to conserve this.
Yeah, definitely don't want to conserve this. I think no. There's always a place for progress. There is always a place for room for us to all move forward
like
collectively.
I said, it's a conversation between past and present.
Yes, and I think that knocking this down would provide some great room for us to move forward.
Yes. What about this one here? What do you reckon of this? Oh, sumptuous, isn't it?
The contrast against the evidently beautiful natural landscape it's surrounded by just makes it all the more depressing.
I know.
Because one of the interesting things about architecture is the fact that oftentimes you do need to part of the splendor of it can be contrast, but this isn't a splendorous contrast.
Look at how thin those windows are as well.
Yeah,
Like just tiny slits of
prison
light.
cells.
It's awful. None of these are actual prisons, by the way. They're all like supposed to be office blocks, municipal buildings, or other museums and things. Yeah, and then the final one here. Slightly better, in the better light, but this is in Japan, proving that the ideological follies of the West do not stay in the West.
Le
Corbusier.
Was he French?
He was Swiss-French.
Swiss French. Oh God, just like Rousseau.
all
Oh
coming
no,
together.
it happened again.
Oh dear. And just in case you are getting tempted by the idea that beauty is unimportant, beauty is important, and we in fact did a whole contemplations on it. Josh and Thomas did this: what makes someone beautiful, or something beautiful, and it's very much worth your time. I quite enjoyed watching it. But moving back to architecture, there is a big difference, I think, between modern art and modern architecture, and this is the following. The house is not a one-shot. It is not some impactful art piece you can put up in an art gallery, get a handful of people to see it and shower it with undeserved praise, and then it disappears. A house is something that stays there, that people live in, that people walk past, that shapes the physical landscape of humankind for decades or centuries to come. It is much more important, so you have to live in it. And you can tell that the revealed preferences of modern architects themselves is not for modern architecture, because according to this survey conducted by the trade association Sveriges Arkitekter, at least 80% of all architects in Sweden live in houses built before 1920, before modern architecture.
See, this is almost forming, coming together with my conspiracy theory I'm coming up with in my head that you could say, which is these are all actually knowingly terrible architects who know that what they're creating are big boxes, but they're lazy enough that they just want to dress it up in some modernist, faux, pretentious wrappings and call it a day. Because all I need to do is get the ruler out, one line, big rectangle, jobs are good, and get to it, boys.
Oh, that may well be the case, but it's just alarming that they're such obvious hypocrites as well as vandals. Like the fact that, well, obviously I'm going to build this hideous concrete box for
and
my
tell
clients,
you why it's good for you.
right, and good for humanity, but I'm going to live in a nice traditional house, so thank you very much. Yeah, very nice. Now, there is something of a revolution in the offing, a countercultural activist conservative movement, no doubt full of nasty populists, who are campaigning tirelessly for a renaissance of beautiful classical architecture. So let's just play this quick clip here.
So nice.
Cities these days aren't built like they used to be, but it doesn't have to be that way. Join us in Utrecht this summer to rediscover the lost art of designing and building beautiful, sustainable cities. With top-class tutors from all over the world, this intensive 3-week program is a unique opportunity to learn how to create places that will last for generations, combining the latest insights with timeless principles. For more information and to apply, visit www.beautifulcity.nl. Let's build a beautiful city.
Now, I don't know enough about these people to endorse them or anything, so don't take that as an endorsement of us saying you should go and do this or anything, but I'm using them as an example to show that there are people trying to push back against this and train people into how to build beautiful towns and cities and things. There are lots of courses out there all over the world, and some of them online. This is just one that I've taken as an example. But it is an uphill battle. The modern architects have all the institutional control. They have the wealth. They have the support of billionaires and ultimately all of the building contracts, and especially government building contracts. It will take a monumental effort, pun intended, to bring beauty back to our towns and cities and break the stranglehold of the cult of anti-human architecture. But if there's one thing that a billionaire philanthropist could achieve to make the world a more beautiful, less miserable place, I'm looking at you, Elon Musk, it's to get behind the movement to revive beautiful architecture. And there's another handle here with that lovely Scruton quote, "Beauty is vanishing from our world because we live as though it did not matter." I think that's quite profound.
Yes.
And it's not just in architecture. So as we put this up in the background, and we have an image of a house designed by an architect and a house designed by someone who's not an architect.
Yes, I've seen this picture in particular going around a lot recently.
Yeah. One
It
of
really
them is
does make-
stunning,
yes.
the other is hideous.
It really does make you think what we've lost.
And it's the fact that they're a similar floor plan as well, and by the looks of it, a similar biome, so you can't make those excuses. Anyway, so there's another important lesson to be drawn from this. The decline in quality, beauty, and practicality of our buildings is a direct result of the decline in quality, beauty, and practicality of our ideas. So modern architecture has gained its wealth and prominence through essentially institutional capture by infiltrating the schools and colleges of architecture and playing smart politics to gain the backing of wealthy corporations and governments to commission them to build these monstrosities. Our ideas are less visible, but the decay of elite moral fashions into intersectionalism and woke is the intellectual version of modern architecture, I think it's fair to say. Like the modern architects, woke activists have played and won at power politics to the point where they staff the institutions of the media and universities, force entire nations to play their virtue-signaling ideological games, and receive billions of dollars from megacorporations to promote activist causes that ultimately degrade society. Like modern architecture, these ideas are laying waste to our world and turning it into a miserable place for humans to live. So, a stand for beautiful architecture is a stand for beautiful ideas, and it's one that I think we should all support.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium articles we do, this one from John Tangney, Mr. Potato Head, The Black Family, and The Case for Reparations, also now with an audio track for silver tiers to listen to instead of having to read. And if you want to follow what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.